Hello there, Pyro or Pyro. Let me know because I think I'll be making a few videos to you. Anyway, this is a response to your video that was 3 videos long on There Is No Metaphysics. I think we've got a lot to talk about, but I think perhaps we talked past a little bit. We talked past each other a little bit too much, so hopefully I'll clarify my position a little bit more. So yeah, let's do some philosophy. Right. Your definition of metaphysics is something to the effect of everything that was once thought to be a priori is in fact just a posteriori. I don't think that's true. I think that there are certain things which can be worked out from reason and reason alone without the need for a direct experience of them. And I also think that in some ways your account of a priori knowledge is merely how we learned it, why it was useful, whereas the account that I want to give is slightly more fundamental than that. What its role is, whether it's true, what the nature of truth is at all, because I think metaphysics covers truth and existence, and to me these seem to be notions that we throw around all the time. But the fact that we have these notions doesn't necessarily mean that we know what they're constructed of. The fact that we can observe the effects of cause and effect in all different types of contexts doesn't mean that we have an understanding of the fundamental structure of cause and effect. So, is theories and metaphysics, you talked about this a little bit more. Well, metaphysics does consist of theories and arguments, and usually it's a case of not being the reason that I think it's different from physics is because although yes we can argue about various issues, there's no evidence that someone could present you, and no sort of empirical observation, so no fact that one could present you. There's only reasoning and arguments, and the thing is, in these arguments, a lot of the time there's a claim, and either you accept it or you reject it. There's no middle ground on this. So there's a lot that can be worked out. So then the two sides have their argument, and the stance you take on one issue might affect the stance that you take on another issue, and certain things that you assume in one area will affect what you're licensed to say about another area of philosophy, and that's what metaphysics is. It's claims that you make of that sort, and to me there's no empirical basis. You're constructing an ontology yourself, and this is an ontological issue. Okay, then you go on to talk about Platonic forms. I'm not a Platonist. I don't believe in a Platonic heaven. None of that. I think that's the only reason one would invoke a Platonic heaven is to cover up a flaw in their ontology. But it's a form of dualism, in my opinion, so I don't adhere to it. Are a priori laws not physics? No, I don't think so. There are certain things that science and physics cannot tell us. The physical laws, the empirical sciences, they can only tell us about the behavior of spatiotemporal particulars in a given experimental context. They may yield predictions, be they explanatory, predictive, or descriptive, but that's all they can tell us. We have to decide the metaphysics of what the laws are doing. Are they some principles, some laws of nature set in stone, or are the laws of nature just our tracking of the correlations, a kind of cosmic dance, if you will? So there's all those sorts of issues, and those are metaphysical issues. There is no single fact that you could present me from the laws of nature itself from an empirical investigation of it that would convince me. So that's why I think metaphysics on those issues is important. So talking about the river example. This is a metaphysical issue. It's one that I'm unsure about because both positions have good points about them. It seems that this issue about the river between you and Matt is an issue within identity and time, which is a well sort of documented philosophical issue, and it's endurantism versus paternalism. It seems that you're an endurantist and Matt is a paternalist. There are also other such questions in identity. You could even hold, for example, that I don't know, in another possible world, this is identical to this. That is to say that this is possibly this, and that seems quite reasonable. It's possible that that could be turned into him. That might seem like the kind of loose identity that you'd want to hold. But both positions have their strengths and weaknesses. But the discussion of such cannot be resolved empirically. There's no evidence that you could present me to convince me one way or another between you and Matt. I just have to decide which ontology is more intuitively valid and which fits better in my general metaphysic itself. So, how do we know which metaphysical argument is right, and how do we judge? Well, a few ways. I'll be quite honest. Someone will make a particular claim. I'm not saying that there's some universal axiom of truth that we can deduce every logical claim from, but I'm saying that there are certain claims which are true and certain claims which are false, which are claims about metaphysics. And one claim about the metaphysics of perception, which I'm glad you brought up because it's an area that interests me. The metaphysics of perception is, when we introspect, do we become aware of the intrinsic features of our subjective experience? That's a metaphysical claim. The only answer is yes or no. Yes, you could say that it's resolved through the act of perception itself, but that remains to be seen. So how do we judge? A few ways that we can obviously judge. We can reject an argument because its conclusion is absurd, in which case we must question the validity of the premises and the logical inferences made from it. There are all sorts of ways of judging. Someone may be running the risk of circularity, equivocating, and so on and so forth. And in this way, we learn correct patterns of thinking, which aren't prone to such errors as, for example, dualism was in the past. It was shown to be a flawed argument, so nobody adopts it.